Meanwhile, the people have spoken. And these are the new leaders of the United States Congress. The campaign is over. Now the work begins. With new leadership comes new responsibility. What is the plan for Iraq? How will Democrats strengthen the economy? And how will we keep America safe long after the balloons have popped and the last of the confetti has been swept away? These are the questions that Americans want answered. These are the questions that Democrats must address. And coming up tonight, we'll have more on the Senate race in Virginia, where the Associated Press declared a winner just a few minutes ago. And we'll tell you about some of the campaign tactics that are being questioned this evening, I should say. Did some candidates go over the line? But first, President Bush addressed the nation earlier today about last night's election results.
I know there's a lot of speculation on what the election means for the battle we're waging in Iraq. I recognize that many Americans voted last night to register their displeasure with the lack of progress being made there. Yet I also believe most Americans and leaders here in Washington from both political parties understand we cannot accept defeat.
That was only the beginning. Word also came today that Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld is resigning, and former CIA Director Bob Gates will be nominated to replace him. Joining us now with a reaction, the host of Fox's War Stories, Colonel Oliver North, and former House Majority Leader Tom DeLay. Please excuse my voice. It's not from yelling and celebrating all night. I've had a cold for about 3 or 4 days.
He's been screaming in celebration all night last night, Colonel. Don't buy that.
Ollie, what good? Hannity says don't breathe on him. He gets liberal germs.
Exactly.
Ollie, what good is a new defense secretary if the policy remains the same?
Well, first of all, the new defense secretary isn't going to have any short-term effect on what the troops are doing out there. They serve the American people, and they respond to the commander-in-chief. The question is Bob Gates going to get confirmed? You may remember he didn't get confirmed back in 1987 when he was nominated to serve as DCI, and you still have people like Carl Levin and Ted Kennedy and now Jim Webb going to be on that committee, none of whom are friends of Bob Gates. But the bottom line of it is the Democrats don't have a plan, Alan, and the problem with not having a plan is it's easy to be opposed to what you're doing now, but if you're going to govern, they're going to have to come up with something. The
Democrats are not the commander-in-chief. They're not the ones running the war. We still have the same commander-in-chief. Let me show you what President Bush said the other day. I'll put it up on the screen. President Bush said on Wednesday he wants Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld and Vice President Dick Cheney to remain until the end of his presidency. Both these men are doing fantastic jobs, he said. I guess we're not. There it is. And I strongly support them. And yet, here is what President Bush said today during his news conference about that statement.
And my answer was, they're going to stay on. And the reason why is I didn't want to inject a major decision about this war in the final days of a campaign. And so the only way to answer that question and to get you on to another question was to give you that answer.
Tom DeLay, was President Bush purposely not telling the truth last week when he said that, Rumsfeld will serve to the end of his administration? And if I were Dick Cheney, should I watch my back?
Alan, it's amazing to me. The Democrats call for Donald Rumsfeld to step down and resign. The president arranges that, and he gets criticized for it. I have a different concern about Robert Gates. He is from the Brzezinski, the Scowcroft, the James Baker ilk. He made a speech to the Council on Foreign Relations a couple of years ago talking about how we should negotiate with terrorists, negotiate with Iran. I'm worried about his worldview. And if the president's going to work with the Democrats, I want the president to tell those of us that have supported him, supported his leadership in fighting this war and winning this war, that we're not going to see a war run by consensus and committee like we did in Korea and Vietnam and Central America.
My question is, the president said one thing specifically last week, that he's in till the end of my term. Now he says, well, I didn't really mean that. I just had to say that. How can we? That's not truthfulness in advertising, is it?
No, it's a president that didn't want to tell you or the press that he is in the process of making a decision and making a change. It happens all the time. He waited until he made the final decision and then he announced it. What's wrong with that?
All right, Colonel North, let me put a little perspective here. It's very interesting to me to watch the reaction to all of this. And my suspicion is that people are going to misinterpret some of the results of yesterday. The history is this, Colonel North, that FDR lost 71 seats in the 6th year of his administration, 6 Senate seats that year. Dwight Eisenhower in his 6th year lost 47 House seats, 13 in the Senate. Lyndon Johnson, the Kennedy-Johnson 6th year, 47-seat loss in the House, 3 in the Senate. Nixon, Ford, 43 House seats, 3 Senate seats. Reagan lost, what, 8 seats, lost the Senate in his 6th year. This is a pretty common trend. It happens. Why does it happen, and will it be misinterpreted by Republicans and Democrats?
Well, I don't know that it's going to be necessarily misinterpreted. I think the historical trend is just exactly the one you indicated. The issue here is, will the new Democrats that are now going to take power in both houses of the Congress going to stop blaming America first? Because America really isn't the problem. We didn't force Saddam to invade Kuwait in 1990. We didn't induce Slobodan Milosevic to instigate mass slaughter in Kosovo in the 90s. And we didn't provoke bin Laden's assault on the Pentagon and the Twin Towers in 2001. It would be very smart if the Democrats could find within themselves someone like Scoop Jackson, who, by the way, governed through much of the period of time you just indicated as part of the majority in the United States Congress, to increase defense spending to 5 or 6% of the gross domestic product in this country. Currently, by the way, we're at about 4%. During Reagan, it was 6 to 7%.
Right.
And what we need to do is increase spending and not cut back on some of these vital programs like SDI, which undoubtedly they're going to call for over the long term.
Congressman DeLay, let me go a little bit more specificity here when I'm talking about if people will misinterpret these results. By the way, these races, House races, 18 of them within 5,000 votes each. We saw how close it was in Montana and Virginia. I mean, this was a razor-thin margin, but albeit a big victory for the Democrats. But I guess my question is, will Republicans react in a way that pushes them liberal, that causes them to adopt the Democrats' agenda to raise their poll numbers? Would that be a mistake? Would the Democrats, for example, overreach, raise taxes, cut and run, have endless investigations?
Well, first of all, the Democrats are going to be very clever. They're not going to show you that they were liberals. I mean, they were very clever in running a whole campaign without an agenda. And won. But I don't think the Democrats won this race. I think the Republicans lost it. And these are so close and razor thin. Yeah, you're right about the 18. Those 18 congressmen are going to have a very hard time getting reelected in 08, especially if the Republicans will stand up for conservative values and stand on their principles, understand their principles, and fight for those principles.
But do you fear, I got to tell you something, my suspicion here, though, is, Congressman, that it will be misinterpreted. My suspicion is that I think one of the reasons Republicans got in trouble was because of their reckless spending, because of earmarks, because they didn't embrace security at the border, because of Dubai ports, and the abandoning of some Reagan conservative principles. Am I right in that interpretation?
Well, I could argue each one of those with you right now, but you're absolutely right on the fact that they did not articulate a vision, did not articulate an agenda for the future, did not articulate what they were doing. I mean, they were doing a whole... last year, they reformed every entitlement program, got no credit for it.
So, yes, there, gentlemen, coming up.
Got to stand on principle.
Pick it up in a moment. The AP says.